I'm Dan Pfeffler in New York, and as the financial markets are entering the last 30 minutes of the trading for today, Tuesday, January 27th, this is Story Stock. Caterpillar, the world's largest mining and construction company, getting crunched on Wall Street. Investors not pleased with Caterpillar's earnings report, specifically its forecast for profit and sales for 2015, potentially a bad sign for other companies that are tied to global growth. So to get some detail on what's going on at Caterpillar, I want to bring in Mike Regan from Bloomberg. Mike, thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
So listen, I'm going to talk about the results here. Caterpillar's profit revenue both falling compared to the fourth quarter last year. What happened?
Yeah, earnings fell to about $1.23 a share from $1.54. Revenue was down to about $14.2 billion from $14.4. Really, several things going on. As you talked about, the global economy is definitely not doing as well as the U.S. economy. Construction industry sales were down. Sales to resource companies, so energy companies, mining companies, that sort of thing in the quarter, were down about 22%. So really a story about weakening commodity prices, strong dollar, and weakening overseas economies, really, sort of all combining to make for a rough quarter and a rough outlook for 2015 for Caterpillar.
Well, then, given that, then, is it a bit of a warning, then, of the global economy in a bit of a bad shape?
Yeah, it is. And, I think most people realize that Caterpillar came right out in their earnings today and said, the growth is modest and slow around the world. Especially, the big issue going forward, obviously, will be in their big energy division, the companies that sell to energy producers. You have to realize Caterpillar doesn't just sell bulldozers and earth-moving equipment. They actually sell, turbines and equipment that is used in the actual pumps that pump energy from the ground, oil and natural gas. So it's really expected to hit their sales pretty hard for the fiscal 2015. They're looking projecting revenue of about $50 billion for the year, compared to analysts were expecting about $55 billion. So that's a noticeable miss right there. And it looks like revenue is going to come down about $10 billion over the past few years as a result, mainly of this really weak prices in metals like iron and copper, weak prices in coal, and oil obviously being the big story. All of that really going right to Caterpillar's top line sales numbers, and that's what we're looking at today.
Mike, you were talking about how the international story has an impact on Caterpillar. Then how does it minimize the exposure to those kind of uncertainties when you're talking on a global arena?
Yeah, it's a very difficult thing to do. Obviously, you want to stay in these markets. There are business cycles in every market like anywhere else, and it's hard to really enter one and leave one and try to time that correctly. The big story these days are a lot of companies are discussing currency hedges. The dollar has strengthened so much over the past few months. A lot of companies looking at, well, how can we hedge that exposure to international sales? Caterpillar might end up being sort of a wash because they get about 60% of their sales outside of North America. A lot of their costs also come from outside of North America. So from that standpoint, the stronger dollar is good for your costs if you're paying people in other currencies. So ultimately, the dollar might be a wash for Caterpillar. Some other companies in the U.S. that are really focused on international markets could be in trouble, and we saw that today with some other earnings reports.
So talking a little more broadly then, earlier on today, stocks definitely took a hit. They've recovered some of those losses, but what happened in the markets?
Yeah, well, Caterpillar is obviously one of the big movers to the downside. Microsoft also reporting, sales of business software weakening a little bit overseas. Also, similar story with Procter and Gamble. So some big sort of blue chip companies out today with earnings that really were not spectacular. On top of that, we had the government data about durable goods orders dropping 3.3%. So very much a similar story to Caterpillar right there. Durable goods reflecting possible slowdown in global growth expectations as well as a strong dollar. That said, the big snowstorm today kept a lot of people out of the market. We talked to a lot of traders who said, Yeah, trading volume is actually heavy today, but it's kind of a head scratcher because they're not getting their normal orders at the brokerages from sort of your big East Coast money managers. So people are trading, though it's a not a complete set of people that are usually in the market. So a lot of people are wondering if these moves today were maybe exaggerated a little bit, and looking for tomorrow to see if there's a recovery or what.
A recovery, and we'll have to wait and see on that. Mike
Yep.
Regan from Bloomberg. Mike, thanks so much. Appreciate your time and your insight.
Thank you.
You've been watching Story Stock. Stay with abcnews.com for your latest headlines. I'm Dan Kleffler in New York.